Yahweh, 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 hey, hey, manito, oche amane pe matsoen, hey ya ho, kinanas kumti na nochi o ha.
Hey everyone, it's Tea with Tonia, Madakyapi, Dosha, Hampawash Dewi, Emachapi, na Kihu Watani Squaw, Nitsigatsan, Iawoslalha, na 3 affiliated tribes, Himataha, Malakota, Damakota, Hewak Dokta. Hello, my relatives. Oh, I forgot to say, Michinchaki Noom, Hochokanajiwi, na Wachihiziwi, Awichakiapi. Hello, my relatives. Today, I'm going to be talking about self-love. So I'm excited about that. And I'm also nervous about it. But anyways, start off with a story. I feel like around last January, is that hair dryer on your mic? I'm getting distracted by the questions. Anyways, around last year, I wanted to talk about self-love. I think it's really important because last year I was told by somebody that I love, said, you know what? I don't feel like you've been loving yourself. And I sat back and I was like, really? And I got emotional. I started crying and I was like, yeah, I guess that's right. Like I haven't been. And all of these good things that this person was sharing with me, they're like, I was like, how did you learn all this? They're like, from you. And I'm like, what? And I sat there and I felt emotional. So I was just crying. And I just felt like, how could I forget about myself? Like, what the heck? Like, really, Tonia? Like, you're preaching this stuff? Like, that's literally what was said to me. Like, practice what you preach. Like, you share these things with everyone, but you're not practicing them and utilizing these things in your own life. And so I'm teaching others. I was putting out videos and inspiring others, but I wasn't inspiring or uplifting or motivating or loving myself. That was really hard for me to grasp and hard for me to like accept. I was like, what? I was so shook. And so immediately when I don't know how to do something, or when I feel like I'm not good at something, gives me a little bit of anxiety, or I feel like, okay, I got to get good at this. I got to get good at loving myself. And so right away, I started researching and looking up different things and different ways to love myself. I was like, okay, what does that mean to love yourself? Like, what does that mean? And I looked up, I was reading and I was trying to figure out some exercises or some things, and one thing that I had been practicing and that was really hard for me was looking in the mirror, like mirror work. I would be looking in the mirror and they say to like put your hand over your chest or your heart, and just tell yourself like a mantra, and you can choose whatever you want. But for me, I chose, I love myself and I am worthy. And any kind of, when you're walking, maybe you're walking somewhere in the city or anywhere, maybe you're walking on the res and you pass a reflection of yourself and you kind of check yourself out, you're like, oh, but when I even changed that. So when I passed myself, I'd say my mantra, I'd say, I love myself and I'm worthy. It was hard though. Like it was bringing up emotions for me. Like sometimes I'd get emotional and I'd start crying and I'd have to sit there and like have a talk with myself. And I'd have to be like, you are worthy. Like, and it'd take me back to when I was like a young girl. It'd take me back to maybe those of you who know me, I dance jingle dress. I've been dancing since I was a tiny tot, since I could walk. My mom was a fancy shawl dancer. If you tuned into the episode 1, I told about my parents, and my upbringing was in powwows, and it was a way. I never really looked at it as I was loving myself when I was because I feel most beautiful when I'm in my regalia, when I'm in my jingle dress, when I'm in the circle, when I'm dancing. I feel beautiful, like I feel good. And so, how this aligns with like self-love is like, not until last year was I realizing that some of the stuff that I do, putting more intention into them, that matters. That matters when you're doing something, that you're putting your intention into that. And so for me, when I think about when I was a little girl stepping into the powwow circle, I was always looking around and seeing who is the good dancers, whose outfit do I like, who has confidence and, has moves that I like. I was always looking out instead of looking in. And so last year, again, when I started my journey of loving myself, I was really having to, instead of look out, look in, like look at myself. And that was hard. It was hard to like look at myself and start like really digging deep and diving deep and understanding me and even hearing myself. I think oftentimes I would distract myself with exercise, or I'd distract myself with keeping busy with others, with friends, like visiting. I love to visit, but I feel like instead of working on me, I wanted to work on others. I wanted to help them. I wanted to uplift them. I do feel very good at uplifting others, and it's a continual work in progress for me to like speak those things over myself. I was just telling Haley before we got on here how I just dropped my daughter off at the gym, and it's a native owned gym called the MAC here in Bismarck, North Dakota, and just putting a plug in there. So I went inside, and my daughter was like, the MAC is going to be on the news tonight here in Bismarck. And that's a big deal, especially for First Nations and Native people. When I went in there, Angie started introducing my daughter and speaking over her like in a good way, and just like uplifting her, saying like, this is Sapphire. She's one of our basketball players here, and she trains here. She's also one of our models for white cornwear. And I was just standing up on the back like, oh, I'm so proud of my girl. Like they were prepping she was prepping to be on the news. And then the focus turned on me. And I just went in there to like play my girl one-on-one, ball out of control, and kind of sit her down for a little while so she could be humble. Just joking. No, but for real though, we're playing one-on-one, and then they called her over and really quick. And I was like, let's play 21 really quick. But the point to this is that when the attention shifted on me, and Angie said, and that's her mom. That's Tonia Jo Hall. She's well known in Indian country, and she's a famous Native comedian. And I was like, hey, I didn't know, like, I kind of like, saluted, or I didn't salute. I just kind of like awkwardly waved, like, and they're like, really? And I guess that news broadcaster was like, are you really a comedian? I was like, no, I'm a fake one. Like, what? I don't even know how I was supposed to answer that. But the point is that work happens everywhere and anywhere. Like, you'll be challenged to love yourself. And in that moment, I felt like collapsing, or like cringe. Like I just felt like nervous. It made me like uncomfortable in my own skin. Like when people are calling me out, and just like in a good way, they're recognizing me. I remember being a teenage girl. I remember being a teen and going to this local powwow in Cannonball. It's on my res in Standing Rock, and my mom was like, there's a powwow. And I love dancing, I mean, people see me in the powwows and they're like, oh, maybe they assume that I'm only dancing for contest and for money, that kind of stuff always goes around. And there's always people who say, this person dances for the money, or this person is a contest dancer, or whatever it is. But I've always loved dancing. It's a part of who I am, and it's how it helps me express who I am. And even before getting on here, I was just kind of dancing to the countdown music, and it really helped me deal with the nerves of coming on here. And so it's one of my ways of like coping and like helping myself. Movement is within our culture and within our people. And so that really helps me. But I remember this particular time, me and my mom, we went to Cannonball Powwow, and it was an indoor powwow. So it's during the winter, and it might've been to honor the veterans, because there wasn't even a lot of dancers. There's probably like 5, and I was probably like the oldest one there, like amongst these little kids that were dancing. And I remember that they called my name and they recognized me. And I was nervous. I still remember the awkwardness of it. They were like, "We just like to recognize a champion jingle dress dancer, Tonia Jo Hall. Thank you for coming out." And then I looked at my mom and I was like I put my head down, got shamed out. And she was like, "Well, get up and stand up at least. So they're recognizing you." And I'm like, okay. And I just kind of like awkwardly like stood up a little bit like this and like sat back down. She's like, "Hey, don't be acting backwards. Geez, they're speaking good over you and they're honoring you." And I was like, oh gosh, like I still remember that. I'm 32. I still remember how that made me feel and how nervous it made me feel. And so, that is something that I'm continually working on. And I know a lot of people have the assumption that just because I do videos and I'm an entertainer, that I just, you're never embarrassed. You don't know how many times I hear that, or you're never scared, or you get nervous. You're so outgoing and you're so talkative. Yeah, I am. But this has been a challenge in my self-love journey, to really take in that people are being nice to me, that people are loving on me. But in order to feel that love, I had to start, not only the mirror work that I have to start doing, but really believing. And every morning I play affirmations too on YouTube. I just YouTube like morning affirmations, because they say the first 20 minutes of your day will determine the rest of your day. So if you're one of those people who get up like, "Oh, I'm in a rush. I got to get up. I'm late." Like, and you're just on the go and you're rushing, like more likely than not, you might be like, you might have a moment where you crash, or you might be crabby, or you might like, be on edge throughout the day. Like I've definitely had some of those days, and I realized, and I had to take time to like slow down and say, "Okay, you're okay. Just calm down. I'll do, take some deep breaths." And really what self-love has been and has looked like for me, and it's not going to look the same for everyone. It's been being grateful too, like with those morning affirmations. And really what affirmations are, they're just I ams, like I am powerful, I am amazing, I am outspoken, I am, continually. And you can make those up on your own, but it helps me to listen to them and to repeat them while I'm, in the morning, I'm fixing my daughter's hair, or making them breakfast, or I'm driving them to school. It helps to fill that space for me to think those positive things of myself and say them aloud, so I can hear that. And also like journaling, that has been a part of my self-love too. Like, and these things, they don't work for everybody, but they work for me. And so I want to share what works for me. And this is my journal. Like I have many, many journals like sitting here on my shelf here that I've written in. Maybe I jotted like notes about what I thought was funny, or maybe I wrote about a dream. But a lot of times I try to like write a list of what I'm grateful for. Because when I tend to, I feel like complain about what I need or what I want, when everything I want and need is like right here. I have it already. So when I'm writing these things down and being grateful, like it really makes me feel good. It makes me feel good. And I incorporated like a morning ritual. So I'll get up and smudge, I'll put out tobacco, I'll put out coffee and a spirit dish, maybe whatever I'm cooking for my girls, put that out. And that helps me like not take care of my spirit, take care of my relatives on the other side. That helps me, connect spiritually and pray for what I need, or maybe others have asked me to pray. And taking that, having a routine like that for myself helps. I even have it like on my refrigerator to remind me. And some days I don't always do it, and I can tell when I don't do a morning ritual for myself. And you can make this up. It doesn't have to be like, Tonia, how do you do your morning ritual? I need to know if I'm doing this right. Like, all of this is I created what works for me, and you'll do it for yourself and how it works for you. And making sure I have some movement in the day. I grew up long distance running. I grew up in power dancing. And so it's important for me to get active and to take care of my health. And especially during this pandemic, there isn't any powwows. I mean, they're slowly coming around, but it's been important for me to like get in the gym. Or I also have my own home gym here that I created. Nothing fancy, but it's good. It's good enough for me. Also, what has been helping me is traveling. And I know throughout my life, I've always traveled, and I had to realize how much of an impact traveling has on me and how it makes me happy. And growing up, like I said, I talked about powwows. I was a junior girl. And this, my mom would help me, like, because she knew I love power dancing, and she couldn't always go. She would send me off with different families and around the community. And you know how it takes a village to raise a kid. Like, I look back on that, and I'm thankful for how my mom and dad were so, they supported my dreams. They supported what I love to do. And so when I'm doing something that I love, it also gives me that good feeling of love. And so like, I remember traveling to powwows and just having the opportunity to like go off by myself. And so at a very young age, I was going without either my mom or dad, and having to realize that, okay, I'm on my own, I'm with another family, it's cool, but like, there's no other comfort than your mom and dad. And so at a young age, I was having to learn like how to talk to myself, how to like tell myself, how to have that inner talk, how to encourage myself before I go off and go out into the arena and dance. Like that's self-love, but I didn't know that, I was a kid and nobody was really talking to me about that. And I'm realizing it now. And now that I'm recognizing all of the things I've done to love myself, I can put more intention into it as an adult, because that's my responsibility. Maybe I didn't know those things then, but I know them now. And now that I know, I can like share that. And even being in teens, and I wrote some of my notes down here. Even being in teen girls, like I was even more prepared to like go and travel, and traveling makes me happy. Like driving, one of my sisters had said like, you should have your podcast like while you're traveling. Like you should be traveling and then doing your podcast, because I notice how much it makes you happy. And I was like, yeah, it does make me happy. Like this pandemic has taken that part away from me that is like embedded in my heart. Like I love traveling. It makes me feel good and it makes me feel happy. And so I know a lot of us, we had to stay home and we had to learn how to get that at here in our own home fire. And I say home fire because all of us, like, just like, back in our days when our ancestors, we had the fire, like we cooked our food on that. It heated us. And so I think about that. I use that as an analogy for my home fire and rebuilding that and creating that. Because a lot of times I would be traveling out and going out to like experience other people's home fires. I had to do a lot of work here at home. And again, we're talking about self-love and being home and being with myself had really like, it even took me to the point where I was having to realize how loud my inner critic was, and how much expectations I had on myself. Um, I it's kind of crazy to think about how, like, as a young girl, like even having that expectation, like I'm out here and I'm dancing, but not feeling good enough. But yet getting the glory and the praise, I guess, from my mom or relatives around, like saying like, you're such a good dancer. But I didn't believe it. I was like smiling, like using my survival skill to like help me stay afloat, like being a performer, going into college and going into comedy, and people always told me what to feel. Like, you're happy or you're funny. And so I was like, oh, okay. Just kind of being like led and guided around. Like, this is how you are. This is how I see you. And so that was a lot when I started my journey of loving myself, to realize that was listening and people pleasing a lot of my life, like giving the people what they want was also distracting me from like looking at myself and really loving myself. And I know like mirror work and journaling, and maybe some of that don't work for you. Maybe you're like, yeah, I tried to journal, that don't work for me. Also for me, like talking through things and with somebody that's close to me and that I trust and that I love, that has been a form of self-love for me too. And then also going into my learning my traumas, learning about them, my old wounds, maybe experiences that I have that I put a band-aid over and I didn't like work on those wounds, going back into my childhood. That has been work that I was doing. And I also, during this pandemic, I did 3 months of I got a therapist and I did 3 months of that. And she really helped me like and challenged me in ways that maybe I wouldn't have done. Maybe I wouldn't have went as far back into my childhood, my earliest memories, and remembering seeing like abuse, seeing my mom, being in an abusive situation, and me silencing my voice at that time, like gasp. Like I remember, and this, maybe this, I am not trying to, I am going to share this with you guys, what that earliest childhood memory for me was. And it was, it's really graphic and it's kind of like, could be triggering. So just a warning. But I remember my mom, I was going to go to the bathroom, and I remember my mom in the living room, and she was like in the chokehold, like, if somebody was like her husband at the time was like trying to choke her. And I like looked, and I was probably like 6 or 7 maybe. And I went, and my mom was in a situation, a tough situation and a scary one, but she acted like nothing was wrong. So what I was seeing and then hearing my mom say, "It's okay, baby, it's okay. Just go back in your room." Like having like a regular voice, it really made me confused. And I remember turning around, and then I don't remember anything from there. And so that, for me, that was like, if you see something, don't say anything. Don't talk about it. That's not just act like nothing happened. Like, okay. And don't say, that. And so that marked me, that imprinted me in a way where I had to think about that. And I remember I didn't cry then. I must have not cried, because I had to go back into that memory and take that Band-Aid off and allow that wound to heal. And so I remember sitting in my living room, and as I was writing about it, I was writing that first memory in my journal, and I just busted out crying. It was a cry that felt like deep down in my stomach. I was like really crying, like, and remembering it, and then just talking to myself as a kid, because that was encouraged for me. Like, you talk to your child then, your inner child, and you tell yourself like, I didn't deserve that. and holding myself right here. Like, I didn't deserve that. That was scary. I didn't know what to do, and that's okay. Like, really reassuring myself. And I was even like hugging myself and crying and saying, that wasn't all right. Like, you didn't know what to do, and that's okay. And so I didn't really get to talk about any of that stuff. And so when I did, I was feeling. And that's what a lot of this self-love has been for me, is feeling. Because a lot of times when you block that and you're not like loving yourself, like, and this is, I say, I'm motioning from my collarbone down to my pelvic area, because that's where our spirit lies. And that's what I understand, and that's what I know. And so when we're blocking that, and we have all of these traumas, like almost like doors in front of that area, little by little, we have to like clear those doors away. We have to open those doors and address those things. And so, and then there was other things, there was other traumatic experiences that had me in my bed. Like, I was telling my therapist, I was like, I don't know, man. Like, I don't know. Like, I think I need to take a break on going into my like childhood, because last night I had the night sweats, and I never had night sweats, and like my body was like shaking. It was like, because things were coming up. I was remembering things that scared me, and I was remembering a lot of times when I'd go in my bed, and that was like my safest place. And now I created this home. Like, I'm a homeowner now, and this is my safety and my security. So all of these things are coming up for me when I'm on my journey to self-love. I was like, well, I thought this was going to be like, I love myself and mirror work and journaling, and then that was going to be it. But the hard stuff, and this is why I was like, this is why people don't want to do this. Like, this is tough, and a huge part that was going hand in hand with all of this is prayer. Like, a lot of times I was on my knees and like, or laying on the ground and crying and praying into that situation, whatever traumatic situation that was or experience that I had. I was having to pray into that. I was having to talk to my inner child. I was having to like reassure and validate my emotions the way that they were never validated. And that's a whole generation before us, of our moms and our uncles and aunties and our grandparents. They didn't have that. They didn't know how to do that. So we're having to do this work now, and it's necessary, and it's our responsibility to do that. And so there was no avoiding this for me. Once I stepped into this, I was like, okay, I got to do this. Like, it's continual. I'm not sitting here right now like, oh, she's went through her whole childhood and all of her traumatic experiences, and okay, like, I'm still doing the work too with you guys, and I'm always open to learning what's working for you guys and how you're loving yourself. And I can honestly say, when I stepped into those, when I am stepping into those experiences, whether they're traumatic, like really traumatic, or they're just like, and all of us, our trauma is like 100. Like, is it like from 0 on a scale of 0 to 100? All of our trauma is like, they're our traumas. So when people come up to you and are like, it wasn't that bad what you went through, I went through this, like comparing traumas, like, I don't really believe in that. I try to listen to people when they're going through things and understand that that was a hard time for them. And so just a message for you on how to be a good relative, and how to listen and be there, and how to validate your emotions, and also to teach you how to validate others' emotions, because sometimes that's all people are asking for, is to say like, I'm sorry you went through that. You're very strong, and I hear that wasn't easy for you, but I'm just validating you that you are heard. Though that matters, like that I know sometimes, maybe somebody's sharing something with you and you're like, I don't know what to say, man. Like, that was crazy. Like, I know this person that went through that, and you're trying to grab, and you're worried and you're nervous. Like, I don't want to be there for you, man. I'm going to go. Like, I'm going to leave because this is too much for me. Like, that happens. That was happening to me a lot until I learned how to validate my own emotions. Could I be there in a way that people wanted me to be? I've heard once or twice, like, oh, I can't talk to you. All you do is give me a motivational speech. And I'm like, oh, I didn't know that was a bad thing. But really what they were saying is like, validate me, hear me the way I need to be heard. And I too was like saying those kind of things with friendships, relationships, like, you're not hearing me. I need you to hear me. And I wasn't hearing myself. So how could I know how to be heard? How could I know when someone was actually listening to me? I didn't know how to be validated. I didn't grow up with that. And so now I'm having to be my best friend. I'm having to validate myself the way I've never been validated. I'm having to have self talks with myself that I never had, that I never heard of, that I never seen my uncles and aunties or my mom and dad do. I didn't hear them talk about to themselves. Like, if you ever heard somebody say, like, I was just talking to myself, you're like, oh, just weird, just talking to yourself. Like, but it's actually really healthy. And it's actually been so helpful in my journey of loving myself. Like, when I get scared or nervous, like, sometimes I talk out loud too, like in the car, especially. I'll be like, you're okay. You got this. You're fine. Like, and you start to be more and more comfortable with it. And pretty soon you're able to do that for others in a way that you never were able to. And they're like, gosh, you really know how to listen to me. Or I really feel good when I get done talking to you. And so, oh my gosh, I need just okay, my computer is saying it needs to be plugged in again. Okay, um I was planning on doing this longer, but I am open to do questions because I don't want my computer to die. And so I would love to take anyone's questions. Maybe I could take 2 or 3. Um if you don't have questions, that's fine too. But I think it's important to ask, even if you feel like, hey, I don't want to ask that. Like, it's important for you if you're not understanding something that I'm saying or something that I've shared, or you're curious. I just encourage you to ask a question about self love, or even if you want to ask me a question. I think that would be awesome to be. I wanted to work it in this podcast to be asked questions at the end here just to see how it goes. Okay. My self talk is to talk to my parents, probably more like a prayer. My parents have journeyed on some years back. Tashina Washdewi. Oh, oh, I love that. Thank you, Tashina Washdewi, for sharing that. I think that's really beautiful. And I could definitely resonate or definitely relate to what you're saying, because my dad passed away also when I was 19. And so that has been a huge part of my journey with prayer, is talking to him and telling him, just talking like this too, like how we're talking. There isn't no specific way to do that. And so thank you for sharing that. That is self-love. I believe in that. And you're also praying. That's beautiful. Thank you. I love that. Um, do I have any more questions? Let me see. Let me read a little bit of these. Culture plays a big part in our healing. That's true. That has been a huge part for me too in my healing, that I haven't prayed more than I have in these past 2 years, maybe 2 to 3 years, and it's helped me. Do you use a sweat lodge? Yeah, I do. I do go to Inipi, and it's helped me tremendously. But really, I also I make my home and my wherever I am. If I'm in my car, I bring my own sage, I bring my own tobacco. I make wherever I'm praying like a ceremony, and we all have the ability to do that. We don't have to go to sweat. We don't have to go to ceremony. I just want to encourage you guys and share with you guys that wherever you are, making your prayers is a ceremony. If you stand outside, if you sit in your room, if you a lot of times I was in my closet. I have a walk-in closet that is big enough for me to like kind of chill in and to get that, especially in the times I was going through those experiences Oh, okay. Oh, great. My laptop died again. So if you stayed with us, thank you. Stayed with me, thank you. Again, I was just asking, I was getting asked questions, and the last question was, do I use sweat lodges for my self care? And I said yes, I do, and I feel like it's important to, again, I'll reiterate what I was saying is when you're praying that you make that time and that space wherever you are like a ceremony, like especially that's what it's teaching us in this time of like this pandemic, is that we can have a ceremony wherever we are, like us and Creator. And so, thank you guys for those few little questions. I appreciate it, and I hope that you guys got. Oh, Haley asked a question. Okay, hold on. What has personally pushed you to keep going when you feel like giving up? I feel like for me, what has really helped me not give up is my passion to help the people. That has really helped me through making people laugh, making people feel good helps me, and it makes me feel good. And so now I'm learning the opposite. If I feel good, the people will feel good. And when I'm not doing what my purpose is, I feel like my battery kind of gets low, and I definitely can feel when I'm not doing what I'm supposed to. But that's a good question. Thank you, Haley. Um, for you to word comparison is showing a strong. Hey, me just reading. Sorry. um, okay, but I'm going to end my live, and I had to transfer to my phone again. This is the second episode, and this happened again. My computer died. It was fully charged too, so I don't know, but we'll figure it out. I'm thankful, and I'm more comfortable this episode 2. So thank you for joining me, and I hope that you got something out of the podcast. I always like to end with my language, which is Hidatsa and Lakota. Doksha ke wachianka pikte and audio gods.